Can we talk a little bit let's talk about speculation and modeling. I think this is an important point to make. I don't think you can look backwards at charts to figure out what's going to happen next when you get a technology. Mm-hmm. See, if you were trading commodities with no technology influence, like you're trading corn versus soybeans versus, cattle futures, you could probably study your charts all the time and look for regressions to the mean, and you could plug in your weather patterns and the like, and you might come up with some trading algorithm. That doesn't work if I invent the new magic corn that you grow it once and it feeds someone forever. All of your models don't work. If I have nuclear powered cars, that operate on a nuclear reactor that big, all your historic models don't work anymore. When you manage to create digital photographs and you upload them to an iPhone, all of your models about competition in the PC industry, or like which of the camera companies are going to succeed, Kodak or Panasonic, or none of them, right? If you introduce a new technology that's 2 orders of magnitude or 3 or 4 better, then all of the trading algorithms, all of the wisdom of traders, of speculators, of chartists, none of it matters, right? I try to explain this to people. I look for the most brutal way. You're a very educated person. You have a PhD in nuclear physics, nuclear engineering, right? And,
yes.
And you know everything there is.
Yeah, I'm the first to say on my channel that all models are wrong, and some provide useful insights, but they're all, at their core, they're going to be wrong. And I don't make any claims that any model is going to tell anyone what's going to happen by any stretch of the imagination. So
if I walk into your room while you're doing all this trading and I take a gun.
What trading are you talking about? I'm not a day trader. I don't trade. I generally.
Let's say every single thing if I walk into your room and I hold a gun to your head, the only question is it loaded and will I pull the trigger? And everything you've learned in your entire life is irrelevant. There's one thing you need to figure out is it loaded? Will I pull the trigger? How do you keep me from pulling the trigger? Everything else becomes meaningless. And I feel like that. Why is that? Because I introduced a new piece of technology or a new possibility into this system. If the system is closed and adiabatic and there is no new energy source, you can solve the problem in a closed system. But if the system is open and it's possible for someone to show up with a new approach, which is for example, if Bitcoin is digital property and it demonetizes all other physical property, then $100 trillion of money is flowing into Bitcoin. And everything you've studied about Bitcoin in the past 15 years, all billion pieces of information, are irrelevant. One of my beefs that I have with the crypto community and with the traders is they're very myopically self-centered, and they're focused upon their experiences, and they try to relate everything to what they've lived through. And none of them hasn't expressed an opinion as to whether or not a fixed income mutual fund will buy Bitcoin. And my point is, if there's $100 trillion of money in fixed income mutual funds, whether they will buy Bitcoin, which you don't know, is more relevant than everything you do know and everything you've ever done and every single success you've ever had. They're all irrelevant compared to whether or not someone that is not in your ecosystem chooses to enter with amount of energy, which is 100x greater than the amount of energy you currently have under your control.
So I also, to some degree, I think you're projecting what your experience on other channels may be onto mine. On mine, we look at a lot of charts that just show things like, while the 1 year ROI, it can be bad sometimes, the people that stick around for years and years, these are the people that gain the most. It's basically complementary to what you do. I just stick to the data. I don't project my opinions. I show the data for what it is. We have, all sorts of charts showing like the ROI over various time frames and whatnot to try to educate people on why, a lot of times people get scared off from Bitcoin because they buy whatever the local top is and then they capitulate when it's 50% down. I try to educate people on, hey, look at the models, look at the data, look at what it's done, and it's not going anywhere.
My point is, the question is what data? Like, for example, what if I told you that all of the data of every trade of Bitcoin and Ethereum since the beginning of time and every other crypto trade and every result and outcome of everybody in the crypto ecosystem is all irrelevant data? The relevant data is whether or not one dude with $10 billion decides to buy Bitcoin tomorrow. And that's not in any of your charts and any of your data. So you can look at any data you want, but saying, well, we look at data can be a crutch because people just look at their data. Are you looking at the data of whether the 10 richest people in the world are going to actually invest $100 billion in Bitcoin tomorrow?
Because you also look at data. You spent a long time talking about, like how everything's depreciating, like the US dollar is appreciating, everything's depreciating, Bitcoin's up a certain amount in a year. This is what we do on the channel as well. I just do it visually with charts. The same thing that you're doing when you speak. I like to visualize things as well. I'm not saying that I can predict what's going to happen. I make no claims to know what's going to happen by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm not critiquing whatever you've covered. I can't presume to know. What I'm observing is that if I look at Twitter, I look at what I see, and most of the chatter, people tend to be very myopically focused upon their own trading data, and like they want to extrapolate Bitcoin's future from Bitcoin's past, or they want to extrapolate some crypto from the crypto past. And so they tend to take a very closed system view. They think that they're a closed system. And I take an open system view, which is, for example, what will every politician in the world say? What will all the relevant issue is, what about the $400 trillion that's not in crypto? That's relevant. Right. The other point is I think that most of the traders, they're not technologists, so they're trading the stuff, or they're talking like they're thinking it's commodity and they're comparing it to other commodities or other things they can trade. But like, for example, let's take Apple. Apple was the winner. And you could not have predicted Apple was going to be the winner in 2010 based upon all the historic trading data of every company imaginable. But you could have predicted it would be the winner if you simply used the phone. If you used the Apple iPhone and you compared it to Windows and the internet, you could have said, it's very obvious this is a better user experience, and one day 1 billion people will want that. And if you combine that with one other observation, I travel around the world and I see the Apple software is better, and I see every wealthy person's using an Apple phone and an iPad. And the conclusion is Apple is going to win the entire affluent market, and then they're going to build the entire ecosystem of Apple everything. And you're extrapolating from a product experience about where the world is headed. Just like Google Maps. You look at Google Maps, say this is better than a physical map. You could have said one day 5 billion people will want to use Google Maps because it's better. But there is no data in the trading world that you could look at that would support that. The data set that would support it would be how many people live on Earth, how many people can eventually afford a $50 Android phone. Mm-hmm. Right? If you look outside of the system and you pull macro trends and technology trends from outside the system, then you can forecast the impact of technology. But if you look inside the system, then all you're going to do is look at trading patterns, and you're playing with these closed models. And I just feel like the closed models don't really give you that much insight. They're generally pessimistic, and the people that have an interest in pushing them, they typically want people to trade in and out of things because they're looking for some signal. Like, Like
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
looking
I
for
don't.
a
I'm
signal
not
that
a.
says
I'm not.
Bitcoin is cheap or Bitcoin is expensive or
I'm
whatever,
not,
right?
for the record, I'm not day trading. You know, I have no interest in people trading. You know, I don't even post affiliate links or anything like that. I don't have any interest in that. I think that that's not a good thing, and that most people are probably going to lose their money if they go out try day trading using you know whatever algorithm they want to use. So that's not what we cover on my channel. I mean, to give you an example, like if you just want to see an example, like I mean, here's a chart that I sometimes present on my channel, and I mean, you know, I'm not necessarily saying that Bitcoin has to follow any type of trend, but in terms of educating the public on, yeah, like sometimes Bitcoin can have a bad year, but it generally trends up with time. You know, this is a logarithmic scale, the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and 4 year ROI. You look at this and you can see exactly what you were saying earlier, that, you know, no investor is buying Bitcoin with the idea of holding it 1 year. It's gambling, right? It's pure gambling. But if you hold it for a long period of time, at least what Bitcoin's history shows is that it works out really well. I would agree that it's a very deterministic view to say that just because it's happened before is a reason for it to happen again. But by showing these charts to people, I've been doing the channel for over 2 years now. By showing these charts to people, it did allow some people, I think, to have a different view on Bitcoin and to stick it out for the long haul rather than capitulating whenever it drops, you know, a few percentage points or whatever. These are the types of.
I mean, but you're not really showing the future. And it's like if I said to you, you can build your building with steel, or you can build your building with clay or bricks. I mean, isn't there a different observation, which is like, I have a gun, you have a bow and arrow. Here's a gun, let me shoot it. Okay. Are you going to show me the statistical history of all the fights with bows and arrows versus guns? Or are you just going to show me the gun? With Bitcoin, you could just give property to 5 billion people.
Right, but I mean,
the historic ROI of Bitcoin isn't really as relevant as giving the thing to 5 billion people, right?
Right. I mean, I agree that it's not necessarily as relevant, but I'm just visualizing the same things that you discuss when you were discussing the annual returns of Bitcoin in your tweets and on this video versus other assets. Like, it's just a visual.
I guess the other problem, Ben, is like you got all these charts, but you're still missing like the big thing. The big thing that happened was the currency collapsed 37% in the last 12 months. All your charts are in an environment where the currency was collapsing 7%. Like once you go before March of 2020, the currency was weakening at 7% in North America. So
I mean, I have charts that plot the value of Bitcoin against other assets as well. I don't only look at the US dollar.
I'm just saying that, like, you live in charts, and if you live in charts and you want 10-year charts, well, you didn't have 10 years of the currency collapsing at 37% a year. You have 1 year. Okay? And so if you have jarring, jolting changes, you didn't have institutions buying Bitcoin for the 10 years. Institutions started buying Bitcoin in August of last year, 8 months ago, 9 months ago. So when you actually spend tons of time looking at historic trading charts, you underweight technology and socioeconomic developments that are material, and you overweight statistical patterns in the closed system as it no longer is.
I'm not calling them trading charts. That's what you're calling them. I've never mentioned them as trading charts. But
you're showing me ROI of Bitcoin in 2016. It's
the running ROI. It's basically to educate people on the fact that, yeah, like there's going to be volatility and you just sort of have to live through it. It's basically the same stance that you have. It's just I'm visualizing it. I mean, we just had downward volatility in Bitcoin. It dropped 50%, right? So who cares, right? I know you don't care. MicroStrategy doesn't care.
I guess my issue is people are looking at these things and debating them. But if I told you the currency was going to collapse by 90% next Tuesday, wouldn't it be more material to point out to people that the currency is going to collapse by 90% next Tuesday than to have them study the last 10 years of trading of a lot of complicated things?
I don't think it has to be black and white. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And also by saying something's going to happen next Tuesday is also a very deterministic thing. I mean, you're basically saying that something has to happen.
But it is black and white in Argentina and in Lebanon this year. It is black and white.
It's not black and white everywhere.
It's black and white, but it's black and white in a lot of places, and the
just
black
because
and white,
it's black and white in like a few countries doesn't mean it's black and white in every single country in the world.
Yeah, so I guess we come back to this issue of either you're a technologist, I hold the iPhone and I say Apple's going to win because it's good, or you're a chartist and you say, I just want to look at the statistical performance of Apple stock versus other stocks for the past decade and see whether or not I like it.
Why can't you be both? Why can't I believe in Bitcoin from a fundamental
because
perspective
the one is
and also
wrong
be
and
interested in looking at the charts?
Because you would have been wrong with the one and you're right with the other, right? I mean,
What
Google,
would I have been
Apple,
wrong
Amazon,
about with the charts?
Facebook went to $1 trillion, and it had 8 years as a private company, and so
I've used the charts for my own self to say, you know what, Bitcoin's going to appreciate over time. I've used the fundamental analysis to say, you know what, Bitcoin's going to appreciate over time, and Bitcoin does appreciate over time. I don't really think there's a problem with that. I mean, I don't understand why.
I think the problem, it's not that much, but if you're throwing in 27 altcoins, you're putting
I'm not talking about
more,
altcoins.
right?
Hey, let's leave altcoins. I haven't mentioned altcoins once. I mean, I've mentioned Ethereum.
And we're still back to the fundamental issue, which is the currency collapsed 37% in the last 12 months. That's the single, probably most important macroeconomic driver, and then the technical driver.
I talk about the U.S. dollar all the time on my channel, and we talk about where it is. Like, I mean, we talk about these things. I think that you think that I only just talk about algorithmic trading. I don't talk about that at all.
Okay.
Like, literally
we can go on another subject. We've covered this one enough.
I agree. I agree.
I think I made my point. I think that people should be reasoning more from first principles, looking out over the next 5 years. And there are a lot of jarring things that happen in the technology environment. Like, it's more important that Square sells or PayPal rolls out Bitcoin to 400 million people than it is important what happened between the year 2010 to 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but it doesn't
Apple
mean...
and Amazon, if Apple and Google roll out Bitcoin on their devices, that will be the single most important signal that we could have.
I agree. Hey, I agree. From a fundamental perspective, I completely agree. I'm just saying, hey, some people need a little bit more guidance and to say that volatility is natural. It's been around for a long time. We're going to keep having it. It generally appreciates with time. We can agree to disagree on the importance of that, but that's one of the things I find important.
The obvious conclusion that comes from that is, since we know it's volatile, you just need to take at least a 4-year time frame, and ideally a 10-year time frame. Because if you try to take a shorter time frame, you're going to be unhappy a lot of the time.
Exactly. I completely agree with you.
What's the next thing you want to cover? Well, I want to make sure we cover all of your issues. At least we have a thorough discussion of them.
I mean, that wasn't an issue for me. You brought that one up. The models.
I know. I brought that up.